Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the board game Stockpiles and what it teaches us about Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm incredibly blessed, and I've been, man, like things have been really good for Scott Garibay on a lot of levels recently, and you're part of that. I want to thank you very much. I've been really thrilled. The numbers on my channel are moving in a better direction. That's just one blessing. I've just been showered with blessings recently, and I've been thinking a lot about this recent change in my life and in my family's life, where on Sunday after we go to church. That's a staple. We've been doing that. I think there's a period in my 20s where I wasn't as where we bounced around from church to church, and I wasn't engaged with church as much as I should have been. Even when I wasn't engaged with church, I was still going to church. I was just switching churches frequently and not applying what the pastors said. But now, I'm incredibly engaged with church, and it really helps my life fantastically. But we go to church, and then we get out of church, and there's this new person it's a new congregant in our church, and we play board games with this, with the board game congregant, and it's my whole family we buy pizza, and the person brings over a board game. Sometimes we go over there, and that person buys lunch, and it's just this really blessed period, and it's happening like 3 out of 4 Sundays, maybe 2 out of 4 Sundays and I have played literally probably 24 games with this person now. And I think what's really incredible is never in my life, I own 50 board games, right? I'm about to go to PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia. By the way, if you want to circle up with PAX Unplugged, the way to do that is DM me, direct message me on Twitter, right? Just follow me on Twitter, and then you can DM me, and we could set up a time to meet at PAX Unplugged. I already got a few meetings set up, and so that's very nice. And PAX Unplugged it's an all board game. It's a board game focused convention. It's one of the biggest in the world. So I'm so excited about board games, right? So this Sunday I played Stockpiles, right? Now this is a special board game, just so you're aware. Stockpiles, it's been reprinted a couple times. Right now it's a $200 board game that's out of print. It's out of print, and it will cost you $200. And the reason why is Stockpiles is a beautiful, near perfect model of the stock market, and it plays in an hour. Right, as a board game, it plays very quickly. It's lots of fun. It's just wonderfully fun. But you learn a lot about you learned a tremendous amount about the stock market. It perfectly models the different types of companies that are represented in the stock market. Finance, energy, automotive, materials, pharma, and tech, right? And if you had asked me before I played this game to summarize the major types of companies, I wouldn't have been able to do it, right? But it also showed exactly how stocks move up and down, how they're company related, plunges and rises on stocks. And I've never seen a game as perfectly capture the stock market as Stockpiles, right? And it was just winsome and fun and wonderful. And it had billionaires modeled in the game in a way that they were instantly recognizable, but they were not the thing. It was just like, here's an avatar of the thing, so I think there was like Wise Warren. That's Warren Buffett, and even the cartoon little picture looked 90% like him, and Donald Trump is there, and Mark Cuban is there, and anybody who looks sees it, but they're not calling the person out literally, right? And I believe that's one of the reasons why the game would cost you $200 to buy today. But we're just so blessed to have this person, connected to us now, who is even deeper down the board game hole than we are, right? So when I saw this thing, I was like, I can't believe that. That is the most elegant simulation engine for the stock market that I've ever seen. And when I saw it, I was like, that's what Gary did, right? And that's why he had to change narrative to do it, right? So basically, Gary Gygax was a war gamer, right? Now, war gamers are far more complicated than board games. They're actually, I think it's an insult to say that they're board games. War games are a far, far greater, more complex version with more time invested and more at stake than board games ever will be, right? So he was a war gamer, and he said, "Hey, I want to change. I'm going to proceed forward, and I'm going to launchpad off of war games." And launchpad is the correct way to think about it, because he blasted fire down on wargaming, and wargaming has really never recovered. It lacks the respect, the money, the anything that tabletop role playing games have left wargaming in the dirt. They're way behind the tabletop role playing game. And they really lost a lot of shine and respect and momentum when Gary Gygax just literally blasted off and flamed out their entire industry and made them quite laughable. Because once people could see what you could do with a tabletop role-playing game, who's still bothering with war games today, right? It's a really shred niche little hobby sitting over there accomplishing virtually nothing, right? While Dungeons and Dragons is on the tip of every screenwriter's tongue, big screen and small screen, and is changing the politics, religion, and culture of America daily, right? Come on, right? So Gary Gygax changed human narrative forever, right? Before Gary arrived, there was this simple I'm an author, I'm going to write this story down, and you're going to shut up and listen to it, and nothing you say is going to change it, right? And Tolkien's work is antiquated now, right? Shakespeare is antiquated now that Gary has arrived, and the reason why is he's artist, dungeon master, experiencer, Dungeons and Dragons player, fate itself, the math rocks, right? And he created this new form of storytelling that's incredibly personal, that can literally improve you as a person with every moment spent at the table, because the story is not trapped within the confines of the artist. It's not trapped within the confines of the experiencer. It is shared equally with the experiencer and the artist, and both are interrupted by fate itself. And we will never turn back to the staid old stories of small and big screen, right? We have something better now, and we move forward with it. So how did Gary pick up the narrative mold of humanity, slam it to the ground, break it open, and reforge it into something better? Well, the reason the narrative changes came in Dungeons & Dragons was it had to. Human narrative could not contain the stories that Gary wanted told, right? And why was that? Well, the reality is, Dungeons & Dragons, its core component, right? I think he proceeded forward like it was a board game, but what was he emulating? He was literally emulating the entirety of human experience. When he said, we're going to focus on one soldier, and I will tell you what sandwich they ate for lunch, that changed everything, because what it said is each human matters. It's not just a character who's at the behest and trapped by the artist. It will be and that one character, he said, that character, that human, will be shared by artist, experiencer, and fate. And this is where we arrive. It is utterly astounding. Gary Gygax moved forward with the intention of creating a board game that would simulate the human experience itself. And when he got in the middle of the project, in my humble opinion, what happened is he knew he would have to shatter humans' broken, antiquated model of narrative and reforge it. And once he did that, Dungeons & Dragons was no longer a board game, no longer a war game engine. It was what he intended it, in my humble opinion, to be: a human improvement engine that has more value to humanity than psychology ever will. And the reason why is Dungeons & Dragons can help anyone. You don't have to think you're broken to be helped by it. Whereas that's what psychology is. Psychology has turned into, if you think you're broken and you got piles of money over there, we'll help you. Everybody else is SOL, right? But Dungeons & Dragons, what Gary made, is so much better. He's like, hey, you think you're awesome? Yeah, you think you're charismatic, smart, and intelligent, but you want to be better and you want to be more? I got you. And that's the issue. Is Dungeons & Dragons is help for all humans, not just humans who perceive they're broken and have a pile of money they need to burn. It's just far more valuable than psychology ever will be for humanity. We have the best model now. And the reason why is, in my humble opinion, Gary stepped forward to create a board game that would capture human experience. But when he had all the pieces out on the table, he saw the opportunity and he seized it, and he made Dungeons and Dragons more than a board game will ever be, more than a war game will ever be, more than most people will ever see it even to be. We'll be unpacking it for centuries. All that's my humble opinion. I'm ready to hear yours. Let me know in the comment below. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.